I'm president of the shul, and Mandy, we're really grateful that you would join us tonight. We've had some really excellent inspirational speakers over the last few weeks, and now we're going to nurture not only our minds but our soul with delicious babka. I've heard nothing but rave reviews, and I'm really excited. So thank you for joining us and giving up your time and teaching us. And I look forward to some delicious babka at the end of the evening.
We'll pass it to Robin.
Oh, Robin.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Robin Blicker, and I will be moderating this evening for Sharazadik's first baking Zoom class. One of many, I hope, to come. This evening is light in academics. Mind you, it can be confusing and a bit of an effort to think late at night, but anyway, but we know it's loaded for calories. So let's use up our flour. And if you're drinking wine, that's also nice to do when you're having a good time baking with girlfriends or other people who are on. And let's have some fun before the intense cleaning and prep for Pesach comes. So there will be an opportunity to give you input about this class and a little survey after this. So please take your time to fill it out because it just makes our programming at Sharazadic all the more better when we have your input. Throughout our class, please feel free to ask questions on the chat. I think that'll be really helpful for all of us to learn from each other. Tonight we have the honor of having Mandy Silverman teach us how to make chocolate and cookie dough babka. Mandy was ahead of the curve and started her Instagram account in 2013. She has over 300 unique challah bread and babka flavors on her Instagram account, and it was difficult choosing what we should make this evening. I want to thank the talented Rachel Lewinsky and the committed programming committee for all their work to make this evening come together. It's late in Massachusetts, so I will hand over the spotlight to the head baker, Mandy.
Hello, everybody. Oh, this is so exciting. They're all still fresh and we're kind of like worn out from the end of the day, but so they're like vibrant will come through.
But we've been like storing up energy for a couple hours.
We do seem, we are, for 10 o'clock at night, we're
good, ready to go. I don't have her energy, but I tried.
You know, it's good. Sometimes maybe I need a little less energy, you do a little more.
That's why we balance each other out.
Oh my gosh, this is so much fun and we are so happy to be here tonight. We're going to be doing two awesome babkas. We're going to do one more traditional shape and then one more a little bit elaborate, fancier flower shape. And we'll learn about different fillings and things that work in filling along the way. And hopefully I'll give you some ideas to start making your own fun flavors and personalizing them, because that's my favorite thing to do, is making challah and babka things that are not just like wonderful for like, you know, okay, generations and everything like that, but also special to us, right? So we all like doing things. We like them more when they have something special. So that's like the name of the game. And I want you all to feel confident, because whatever your challah or babka turns out ever, it's amazing that you're doing it. I'm just letting you know right now. Oh, you know, don't say that it's not going to turn out good. It's going to be great because you did it. And I'm proud of you. And not like, you know, my pride should be a thing, but hopefully like my pride will like blend and eventually you all will feel the, I've made a carb that's been twisted or braided in some way. Now, before we get to baking, I'm going to start with just some basic information about the dough that you made tonight, or you have made tonight, or maybe you haven't made it yet. And this way you'll know for the future. And this way you'll also understand some of the ingredients that are in the babka. And also challah, incidentally. My challah recipe and babka recipe have similar ingredients, but a lot of people do ask, is there a difference between your challah dough and your babka dough? And the answer for me is yes, because I like in my babka dough it's a little bit more rich. So, and also a little less sweet, because our sweetness is going to be from our crazy fillings tonight. And but also the more rich, the easier it is to roll out, and it's easier, more cake-like, because we have a little bit more yeast in it. So the challah is more bread-like, and the babka is more yeast-like. Now that more cake-like, so babka is cake, challah is bread, right? So, but that said, you all are more than welcome to always use challah dough for babka. A lot of people with some of my flavors, like I made a cupcake batter challah, like this is my cupcake batter challah. They're like, no, that's babka. So some people are very particular about what's sweet and what goes in a challah. You can't have a savory bab. I'm very fluid. I think that anything that's yummy can be in anything, and it's just what kind of texture and shape your dough is in affected. But that said, if you're more comfortable with challah dough or you just prefer a challah dough, you can definitely use that in these techniques as well to make a babka with challah dough and call it a babka. I won't tell anyone. All right. Now, another thing, let's talk about my babka and challah recipes are that I use instant yeast. Now, instant yeast is, to me, like the safety net for all of baking, because when I was starting to bake, I did not make challah at all until 2012 at all, or babka definitely never, because one of the reasons that I was scared to do it was because first of all, like, you know, challah is scary and it's got a lot of, you know, like there's meaning to it and you have to make it like your bubby, and if you don't do it this way, people are getting very particular. But for one of the bigger hurdles for me to climb was the yeast, because yeast, if you don't know, is the most popular form of yeast, and the yeast that you see in most challah and babka recipes, and in fact mostly at most grocery stores too, is active dry yeast. Now, active dry yeast lies, because active dry yeast is not active, it's lazy, it's also fragile because you can kill it. So active dry yeast, you can't, this is what frightens me the most, is that this yeast that's going to make it rise and be the most important probably part of your entire creation all rests on this bit of yeast. And so when I was starting to learn about the different kinds of yeast, I learned that active yeast, you have to have it be activated. So she called needs to be activated yeast, not I'm sorry, I know, I'm sorry.
I'm very offended by this name.
I don't like dishonesty, and I feel like just so many people message me that they don't. So I feel like it's collective rage. I'm hoping it's not just me. I don't want to be like the bitter person against like the bitter yeast. Okay. Anywho, but active dry yeast, if you do use active dry yeast, which you do oftentimes see in recipes, the key is that you want to wake the yeast up. To wake the yeast up, you have to have it be in water that's a certain temperature, right? It can't be too cold because the yeast isn't going to be impressed by that. It's going to stay sleeping. It doesn't want to do that. And it doesn't want to be, if it's too hot, you will just kill it because it's also sensitive and it'll just die. So, which also was scary for me because I don't even like to kill spiders. Like, why would I want to kill yeast? Like, awful spiders, what do they do for me? Yeast gives me bread. So I really was not going to take sympathy on it. Wasn't going to be that. So for me, the key for yeast is that you want to put your hand under the water, and if your hands it feels warm enough, but not too warm where you're going to pull it out because it's like burning you, then that's the right temperature, all right, for yeast. But to me, that still seems stressful, right? Okay, this is warm enough, but what's too warm for me is not warm enough for yeast. It was a lot of questions. So when I learned about instant yeast, this was wonderful to me because instant yeast is not a liar. Instant yeast is ready. What is it ready?
In an instant.
It is ready instantly. You put it in your dough, in your mixture, and it's like, I'm good. I don't need anything. It's like you take care of everything.
Oh,
You're like, I'm active dry yeast because I'm high maintenance. And you are instant yeast because you'll do all the things for me instantly. Danny, take out the garbage. Done. Mandy, can you bring me my water? I forgot like 4 hours. He's still thirsty, but that's okay. I'll get it for you later. All right.
I got it. Thanks.
So instant yeast is great because it can be used interchangeably in any recipe that calls for active dry yeast. So if yeast is not your thing and you're scared about the killing of the yeast, then this is a wonderful discovery that instant yeast or bread machine yeast, because they're both the same thing, can be used in these recipes instead, and you don't have to proof them, which is why my recipe calls for instant yeast, because I think that it's the best. Now, the only problem with instant yeast is that sometimes there are 2 other kinds of yeast that people are familiar with easily in different places of the world. Some other yeasts are around, but rapid rise and quick rise yeasts are forms of instant yeast, but don't do well in recipes that have a second rise. So if you think about things like instant minute rice, right? So minute rice is rice, but it's treated rice that's ready much quicker than regular rice. So regular rice you can use in a recipe, but you can't necessarily use that minute rice in the same way because they'll turn to mush. So that's what happens with instant yeast versus quick rise or rapid rise yeast. They're all instant yeast, but quick rise and rapid rise yeasts are not meant for this sort of thing. So if for some reason you used quick rise or rapid rise yeast and you didn't know the difference, I'm going to tell you right now, Usually at the end, I say do a 30-minute rise at the end and do the second rise. So we did the 90-minute rise first, and then the 30-minute second rise. If you accidentally used that quicker rapid rise yeast in this time around, just skip that second rise because it's not, your yeast is not designed to have that whole other rise. So that's your quick rise, rapid rise warning. If you used active dry yeast and then didn't activate it first in the recipe, then if your dough does not rise, it could be because it never woke up, that active yeast. He's a jerk. Really, just, it's okay. He doesn't mean it. No, we're going to talk about it. We'll move on. Sorry. All right, so that's your little yeast talk. But if people do find that helpful, understanding the different yeast, because you go to the store and there's so many there, right? Another key thing in your babka recipe that I call for that might be different from other recipes is bread flour, right? Bread flour is different than all-purpose flour because bread flour has more gluten in it. Gluten is the thing that makes your dough stick together. So if you noticed that the babka dough, when you were going to knead it and you were using all-purpose flour, was too sticky, it wasn't working right, it's because of the difference in the amount of gluten in the bread flour that I call for versus all-purpose flour. I thought bread flour, I prefer not only for the texture, but also because it comes together quicker, and the less flour used, sometimes the lighter your texture can be, because if you over flour your dough, then it becomes a problem. So those are just two things that seem so innocuous, but they really do make a big difference in terms of your dough. So bread flour and instant yeast. Okay. Now, if there's nothing else, so we'll talk a little bit more about other things as we go. I'm going to start by making our fillings because they need some time to set up. And I'm good. What do we do first?
We always wash our hair and put our hands up.
Close.
No.
So we're not sticking up.
Okay. We're putting our hair up.
Yeah. He's amazing. Like,
and then
I'm so jealous of your.
I'll go first.
You go first. All right. All right. Okay. So yeah. So in different countries they have different flours, but I do even in other countries, if there's a difference in the gluten content, it is definitely noticeable. The most important thing though is that you get that dough to the proper consistency, and don't feel afraid if your dough needs to add a little bit more flour, keeping in mind that any recipe is done in a different kitchen than yours. We're all in different kitchens. We're all in different houses, most of us. And well, I'm in a whole different part of the world. So my recipes might need a little bit of tweaking in other places, just not even in Massachusetts, it's the people in different, so they need it. So being comfortable enough to know that you might need to alter a flour amount a certain way is important. Wash my hands.
Okay. While she's washing her hands, I'm Danny Licious, by the way. I'm her assistant. I never knew how to make any challah until these classes started. And if I can do it, you all can do it, I promise.
So supportive, Danny.
I'm telling you. But now I get excited. Like, oh, look, I need a babka.
He's very cute about it.
I need a 6 strand.
Can you use this making whole wheat bread flour? Yes. Anything can be made with whole wheat flour, with all-purpose flour, with bread flour, just keeping in mind that you might need to change the amount. You might need to add a little bit more water or a little bit more flour just to get things to the just right temperature, to the just right consistency, okay? Things that the cake flour, if that's like finely ground instant flour, those sorts of things that are finely milled, really try and stay away from those, because those are the exact opposite of bread flour. Bread flour is like, oh, I'm so full of protein. And cake flour is like, oh, I'm so just delicate, which is fine also, but not so good right now because we need it to. All right, so here we go.
There's a couple other questions,
yes.
as long as you're answering questions. Just real quick, you can substitute both instant yeast and bread flour with regular flour and regular yeast.
Yes, but if you can't if you do that, then just keep in mind you're changing the recipe, so you're going to have to alter the recipe. So if you're using active dry yeast instead of instant yeast, you're going to have to activate that yeast. That means you're going to take some of the water, take the water that the recipe calls for, and make it that nice warm temperature to add the yeast to that, and a little bit of sugar to activate it, and then keep going with the recipe as normal. And if you're using all-purpose flour instead of bread flour, that's fine, but just be comfortable adding a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Was any other question?
Well, there's just a comment that in Canada, regular flour tends to be higher gluten.
I actually addressed it.
You did, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. King Arthur is the brand we use.
We love King Arthur.
Yes.
One day he's going to come down and meet me.
I hope so.
Or maybe just give me his autograph. One time he responded to me on a comment on his Instagram. I was like,
yeah, it's very exciting. And there was an earlier question about babka braids, but we'll talk about that later.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Twists and whatnot.
So here we go.
All right.
Ready? Here it comes. Are you ready? This is Danny's favorite part, just so you know. Just
Hand cam.
the sound effects. He just loves them.
Sound effects are fun. It was just not cooperating.
It's
You want me
okay.
to do it again?
No,
Okay.
I have a feeling that
We'll
we
have
will
a
be
chance again.
having other opportunities to put in.
Welcome to the Mandy-licious hand cam.
Oh my gosh. So the question, so we're going to be making 2 different fillings tonight. Now, each of these recipes is enough to make 2 babkas. So if you don't want to make, if you want to fill both babkas with the same thing, just make one of them. There's going to be a cookie dough option, and then there's going to be a chocolate option. If you want to make both of them, the whole thing, you're going to have half of it left over. They freeze great. All right, so that's wonderful. Or you can half the recipe. It's a little awkward because you have an egg yolk to deal with, but I'm sure you can just manage that like a little bit. Put half the egg yolk in one, half the egg yolk in the other. But that's the only challenging part. So let's begin with the chocolate. Chocolate is the most, I feel like, popular basic kind of fillings, that and cinnamon actually, but I feel like chocolate is a little bit more so. But for me, a lot of the chocolate fillings were either very dry or like they tasted bitter. So when I started using this instant pudding, like it's hard. It's some people can find it, some people can't. If you can't, which way am I holding it? This way? I always hold it backwards. Thanks, Danny. So some people have a hard time finding it, but if you couldn't find it this evening, feel free just to increase the cocoa powder and sugar amount, but do that at the end. So put in a right amount of cocoa powder and sugar and all the other ingredients, and then go back and add a little bit more to get to the right consistency if you need to. And you can add a little bit of vanilla also if you need to, also for this filling. But that's pretty much what the Jell-O adds. The pudding adds a nice consistency and a nice flavor, which is not too strong, which I prefer, and also makes it a very creamy filling. So that's why I call for the instant pudding. This is my favorite little trick, because you can also use the vanilla pudding for other flavors and like the cinnamon and things like that. So let's start with that. And then I do a half cup of cocoa powder.
My nemesis.
Danny does not like cocoa powder.
It's everywhere.
It does. But look, you just put it nicely in the bowl. Okay, now it's open. All right.
Just leave it.
All right. So I use dark cocoa powder. You can use light cocoa powder. The dark cocoa powder offers a more intense chocolate flavor, but it's personal preference. All right, now this is a cup of sugar. I know it's a lot of sugar, but keep in mind that this is your filling. This is your yummy part. This is the thing that's going to make your babka go woo. All right. Then a quarter cup of oil, quarter cup of canola or vegetable, a non-flavored oil is best here, and a quarter cup of water. All right, keep in mind, you might need to add a little bit of water, and I'll explain why in a minute. And then here you go, Danny. We need 1 egg yolk. So you can use that. Read it. I got it all ready for you. All right. Now, one of my things that when I was learning how to make babka was that for me, I think the filling is where it's at, right? I love a super thick, rich filling. And a lot of the times when you see a babka, it's like they put like a layer of sugar and then a sprinkle of chocolate chips. And for me personally, it's not really worth my time. If I'm going to have like sugar and chocolate and everything, thank you. I really want to make sure that I have the sugar. Thank you. The sugar and if I want to have the sugar and chocolate, I really want to taste it. So all of my challahs, all of my babkas, when you slice into them, there is a layer, right? So when we do this traditional babka twist first, you're going to slice into it, and it's going to be a thick layer of filling. So when we do the flour, a lot of babka styles now involve one long strand, and then you roll it and then you slice it. And people love that, but a lot of things that I've heard from people when they're trying to make that style of babka is even people that aren't crazy about having the thick filling like I am, they noted when you do that, when you slice it, you're sort of thin. You don't have that rich, thick, that filling, right? When you slice it in half, and you'll see when we do the flour shaped babka, if you haven't seen that style of babka before. So you haven't seen that style, but it does sort of like it's thin, like it's not, you're missing out on a whole portion of the babka. Again, I'm a filling girl. So when I created my babka filling, it is very thick, right? Because the thicker it is, the more likely it's going to stay put when you slice it. So keep that in mind. Dana's going to start stirring this up again. So it's going to be thick, so don't be scared if it for some reason
Thanks, Cam.
So if it's too thick though, you can definitely add a little bit more water. Also keep in mind, if you prefer to have thinner layers, you can always roll your strands a little wider, and I'll show you how to do that in our, when we get to the dough in just a moment. And add a little even more water to the filling to make it thinner, because the more you roll your, the thinner your filling is and the wider your strands are before you roll them out, the thinner your filling will be and the more spirals you'll see, if that makes sense. All right, actually this came out perfect.
Oh, it's almost like cement, which means it's perfect.
So people do get confused because my filling happens to be much thicker than a lot of fillings you'll see. So just don't fear if it seems thick, but it should be it shouldn't be dry, it should be thick. So if it's like piecey and crumbly, then you might want to add a little more water.
And what if it ends up too creamy?
If it ends up too creamy, don't worry, stick it in the fridge, it will set up and should get a little thicker. If not, you can always add a little more cocoa powder and sugar. All right, so here you go. This is the, you can just see, like it doesn't plop off the spoon, like it's really on there. This is a thick filling. So we're gonna put that aside now. All right, so I'll give you guys one more second to catch up with your chocolate filling if you haven't already. And I'll put this back here. And then we're gonna move on to cookie dough. So cookie dough filling, I did a cookie dough challah. That was one of the, I feel like it was one of the earlier challahs that I did that got a lot of attention. Because cookie dough, and the second you put cookie dough in challah, it's awesome, right? So then afterwards, you start seeing more cookie dough fillings, which is great. Most cookie dough fillings, though, that you see involve you making the cookie dough beforehand and then freezing it and then having to fill it, which is my cookie dough challah recipe. Also, which is fine. It just takes a little bit more time. And sometimes if you're new to making challah or babka, having to deal with frozen chunks while you're grating is a little challenging. So my goal was to try and find a recipe that did not involve freezing, but would have that cookie dough flavor and also would be easy to deal with, but also would be like creamy because I like the filling when it's done. So after much trials, I figured out the secret really is brown sugar. Once you add brown sugar and vanilla, you get that cookie dough filling taste, and it really, this cookie dough filling that we're making right now is not going to need to be frozen. You can put it right in and it's going to bake wonderfully, and it should be very easy for you to twist your strands with, because it's just like a regular filling. So it worked out really, really well. Keep in mind that, and I'll tell you some fun ideas for the chocolate add-ins later, but for this cookie dough filling, you can definitely add things like, what would you like to have in your cookies? You can definitely add
chocolate chips.
More those chocolate chips. There's, walnuts are a good one. People like to add like Rice Krispies, raisins. You can add, you can make this whatever. If you add a tablespoon of cinnamon or so, you can make a snickerdoodle filling. So these are all, every filling has a way.
Ginger cookie.
Yes, you can make a gingerbread. You can add ginger. Actually, I did a chai gingerbread. One with I opened up the chai tea bags and I used that inside, and that's also really fun. But yeah, and some ginger. So these are things, you've got this base here, this sweet yummy base, and then if you know that the people in your house or you like it a certain way, you can certainly change it. So let's go ahead. We'll make the cookie dough filling too. So both fillings are ready, and again, this is enough to make 2 babkas.
And Cam.
Okay, so here we go. Now it is what do you want to do? You like to do you want to do the dry ones first? Okay, this is a cup of firmly packed brown sugar. It's very firm. I prefer the light brown for this, but dark brown could be used as well. All right, this is a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. So this is just regular boring flour. We don't have to worry about the gluten so much in this one because it's just going to be coming together. Now that's unfortunately all the dry ingredients you have. Okay. All right, so this is a 1/4 cup of oil. Again, a flavorless oil is good. And 3 tablespoons of water. All right. A tablespoon of vanilla.
Oh.
End of the day sounds. We're never down here this time. Today the kitchen's still alive. Ooh, smashy. Okay, the vanilla is really, if you have it, I definitely recommend using it. You're all good. Keep going. I feel like for a while, like I was just using like imitation vanilla, but I really do like the pure vanilla. But vanilla in any form, I recommend if you have the vanilla.
We almost had another egg incident, but I recovered.
Oh, I'm really proud of you.
Ta-da.
And then the egg yolk. The egg yolk is what helps bind it. So we're gonna mix this all together. If for some reason you're seeing that your filling is too loose, some people have the opposite problem with the cookie dough filling that they do with the pudding filling, is that it's a little too, it's not liquidy. They don't feel comfortable stuffing a babka with it that consistency. So you can certainly add a little bit more flour until it gets to be just right. How we're doing there?
So far, so good. Not as thick as the chocolate,
Right, it's a little thinner.
but it's still going to hold
Would you
its
like,
shape.
yes, would you like to add a little flour to it, or are you feeling comfortable with it? Okay, and
Would you
then
like to add a little flour?
let it sit and see how it
Okay,
goes.
let's sit it.
And now, a half cup of mini chocolate chips. If you only have regular chocolate chips, that's fine too.
Thank you.
Oops, I forgot my stuff. Okay,
These are cute little baby chocolate chips.
I know, they're the best. They're hard to find. Okay, delicious. There you go. Now, if you like a salted chocolate chip cookie, feel free to add a little salt in this, or even sprinkle on top of your babka when it's done. Because
That sounds wonderful.
salted chocolate chips salted chocolate chip cookies are my favorite. And if you have to make a chocolate filling creamier, add a little bit of water at a time, like 2 teaspoons at a time, and not so much. All right, so I'm going to set this aside and let it set up, and then we're going to move on to our dough. All right, so I'll give you guys 1 more minute. I'll let all that set up. Clean the space. And then any questions before we go into Doughville? How thick should the cookie dough one be? The cookie dough one should be, it can be as thick as the chocolate one if you wanted to make it a little thicker and add more flour, but just for comparison's sake. So I showed how so this one sort of plops, right? So the chocolate one just sort of stays on the spoon. This one doesn't pour. Like, no, it's not supposed to be like a thin thing. It's more of a plop, plop, plop. That makes sense?
Yeah. I think that's a scientific term, consistency.
Yes. I
It's a
learned about
viscosity
it.
term.
Yes, I
Plop.
learned about it in
It's
advanced.
creamy, plop, and
chemistry.
stuck to the spoon. Those are viscosity technical terms.
Add more flour if you want it to be thicker, and if you want it to be thinner, add more water. There you go with the flow. Either way, they will taste delicious. All right. Now, we're going to be making 2 styles of babka. So the first one, we're going to do the basic babka twist. So this is the way that I always saw babka growing up. It was just a basic loaf shape twisted together, 2 strands. Okay, so that's what we're going to do tonight, just to start with that, and then we'll take it up a notch. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
He's got this. Sorry, everyone. He doesn't. See, I like when you do that voice. All right. So your babka dough that we made, if you made my recipe, makes enough for 2 babkas. So go ahead and divide your dough ball in half.
By the way, this dough came out lovely, and it smells great. Welcome.
You do like the babka dough.
I do.
Look at that. You did.
I nailed it.
I'm so proud. Yes.
That was
Okay.
really good for 10 o'clock at night.
I know. It's 10:30 now. They're really good. Okay, so I'm going to take. So you have enough. This is 1 babka's worth of dough, and this is the second babka's worth of dough. So I'm going to take 1 babka's worth of dough, and I'm going to put it to the side and save it for our babka flour. Okay. Next. Now you don't have to have a dough cutter or a scale. That's completely optional. It is a little bit more, helpful, I would say, to have it. The more strands you're working with, the better it is to have a scale, because you want to be more precise. With 2, it's it can be a little bit more loosey-goosey.
If you get into 3-strand, 4-strand, 6-strand, the scale definitely helps.
It does. 8-strand?
12-strand.
I do 12-strand.
I know.
It's very cool.
I cut them.
Oh, no, you did not.
There was something I cut into 12, didn't I?
That was made 2 6-strand.
2.
That is fair enough. I'll give you that. All right. So the benefit of doing a babka, like I said, is that it's a basic babka. You're only cutting this in half now. So we cut the dough in half. This is the other half.
While I'm cutting, there was a suggestion, could those fillings be good in Hamantaschen?
Yes. They will set up. They might be.
I nailed it again.
I'm so proud of
I
you.
want to adjust it to adjust, but just right on.
That's wonderful.
All right.
Yes, you could. They might be a little. So you want to, for the Hamantaschen, because the cookies don't have as much strength, right, as dough, right? And it's going to get a little thinner. If you do it, I would definitely have things be on the thicker side, right? And the cookie dough one would definitely do best if you did a standard cookie dough frozen in a little cookie, just because the Hamantaschen just aren't as. Now, if you made a Holla taschen, then you can use one of these fillings. All right. Excellent. Any other questions?
Yes, well, I start rolling, but there was a question about the best way to freeze dough if you're only going to use half tonight.
Oh, I'm gonna use half, I use loaf bags and zip it up, but just give it a little extra space because it will rise for 1 second in the bag. So seal it and just stick it in the freezer to last for up to a month.
They sell loaf bags on Amazon and they're very handy and
Yeah.
cheaper than Ziploc.
They really are. They're excellent. And you can marinate a chicken in there.
Hot tip.
Hot tip. That's what we're talking about lately. Okay, so now we have our two halves of the
Oh,
half.
sorry, they meant how to freeze the filling.
Oh, just stick it in a Tupperware. It doesn't need anything fancy. I stick mine in a Tupperware and put it in the freezer. Okay, so we're talking about rolling out our strands now. Now, when it comes to rolling out challah dough or babka dough, there's so many ways people do it. Now, so I'm gonna give you a couple pointers that will work for both challah and babka dough, right? So a lot of people like to do this. It's very fun, squishy. A lot of people like to just yank it. And a lot of people like to beat each other with it. Ha, I got you first. Yes.
Usually you wait for me.
Nah, ha, ha, I tricked you.
We call that the lasso method.
The lasso method. All right.
And it,
No. Oh, okay. Sorry, they can't even see. All right. But honestly, the best thing that we have found here is I call, we roll these out and we call them caterpillars. And we call them caterpillars because we use a butterfly stretch to stretch the dough. So I use this part of my hands right here and I push the dough like that. Okay. And that's going to make sure that your dough is nice and straight. Now, you don't want to roll. These are babka, traditional babka shapes. So they don't have to be so long this time. So you want to, if you're making it in a loaf pan, which I do recommend the traditional babka be in, it's a 9x5 is like its traditional shape. A good way to see how long your strand should be, it could be, so this is your loaf pan, that would be a little bit longer than that. So about 10 inches or so is fine. Okay, don't over roll it though, because it won't fit in your, all right. So you roll that, and now be sure that hopefully your dough is a good consistency. If your dough is sticky for some reason and you want to add flour, that's fine. You totally can add a little flour, but only do a little bit at a time because it starts to affect the flavor and the texture of your dough the more flour you add at this point. So what I do is I like to have a little bowl of flour on the side, and some people like you want to shake it on. What I recommend, instead of shaking it on, where you can sometimes have a dough flour avalanche. I'll come up with a word for it. And then you'll have too much extra flour. You won't know what to do with it. I recommend a florinado. Excellent, Danny. A flournado. I actually put it on the side, and I just put my fingers right in it. And that is how much you need. And you can put that on your dough directly, and that'll help limit the amount of flour that you're adding. And you don't have to worry about having too much flour, which is always the consideration there. All right, so you rolled out your caterpillars. And now we're going to go ahead, and you can come in with a rolling pin or a glass or a can, and whatever you have handy. I prefer the rolling pin. And you want to roll these out. You want to get a pretty good width on these. I'd say if you can get around 4 or 5 inches, that would be great. Okay, so each strand is about 10 inches long. 10 by 5 is what we're going for. You can be a little bit longer if you need it to be. And it's like I was saying, if you are wanting to have a less thick filling, if you're not like Mandy and you just like a little dainty filling, you can certainly try and roll them out even longer and thinner. I mean, not longer, just wider, and make a thinner filling, because then you'll have more room to roll. All right, beautiful, Danny.
While we're rolling, there was a late breaking question about mixing the fillings. Could you mix the fillings?
Oh, yes, definitely. You can do one chocolate, one cookie dough. You can do like a layer of chocolate, like a cookie dough, 100%. In fact, sorry, everyone.
You go crazy, you go wild with those fillings.
You should. I feel like if they go together and they're in the same category in your brain, then they definitely can go together here. Like I wouldn't recommend like a buffalo chicken and cookie dough babka. That would be a little bit much even for me.
Can you repeat the dimensions, please?
10 by 5, 10 inches long. They can be a little bit longer, 10 by 12, but at least 10 and at least 5.
Do we know that in meters?
Oh, I don't know what in meters.
We have that cheat sheet somewhere.
Yes.
Maybe somebody who could do the conversion, and if you need to, can put it in.
I meant to do that because when I did that Australia, it was at South Africa. They were like, we have no idea what you're talking about. They were very kind about it. I meant to prepare them. Okay, so now you have these 2 lovely rectangles that are ready to go. All right, we're going to do our cookie dough filling in this one. How is this looking for you, Danny?
That's
pretty
great.
thick, actually. It's set up nicely.
Oh, I thought, I'm looking great.
You
Thanks.
do look great, Danny.
You meant the filling.
I meant the filling, but that is totally fine. Okay, so let's talk about filling our babkas. So go ahead and what you want to note is that you've got this nice parameter. So in your perimeter, I was called parameter. The perimeter around is what you have to keep. All right, so put your filling in. Watch Danny. Just remember, half of this is what's going to be needed for both. So this is enough for 2 babkas. So you're going to put
So
a
it's like
quarter.
a quarter in each one.
Exactly. Quarter of the filling in each babka strand. All right.
Okay.
Another plunkaroo over here. I don't, when the dough was rising, do I put oil in the bottom of the bowl? I actually don't. No. I'm so crazy on dough consistency that I think that adding oil to the bottom of the bowl it's just gonna mess with your dough consistency. So when I do the rise, I either don't do anything or I put a sprinkle of flour on the bottom and a sprinkle of flour at the top. A very, very light amount though. Okay. How's that? Oh, that looks
Have a
great.
nice big perimeter.
You can have a little bit more perimeter if you want. I mean, you can have a little less perimeter. This is
I know.
perhaps an excessive perimeter.
I probably need to spread it.
But however, if you are new to babka making and this is your first go around, the bigger the perimeter you have, the easier it will be. Now what Danny's doing, because these are both thicker fillings, they mean so instead of like Nutella that you would like spread on like that, you can't really do that with these because they're so thick. So if you want to get your fingers a little wet, actually much put a little water in this for you. Because you were so smart with that last time. All right, so if you wet your fingers a little bit, you can spread the filling nice and neat.
Oh, that's so much easier.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting me the water.
You're welcome. All right, that's something my mom taught me when we made. She taught me when I made commish bread, which I don't know if anyone else calls it commish bread. Does anyone else call it commish bread? It's like mandel bread, but it's not really quite like mandel bread. Mandel bread is usually made in like logs, and cut. This was it's made in like a big square pan. Well, yours is much better. You can just come and do mine.
It's the other way around.
I know.
You're usually way more.
I feel like maybe I'm crashing.
No,
It'll be up till 3 in the morning tonight, just being excited.
it's good.
All right, so here we go. So you got your perimeter all the way around. All right. Beautiful, delicious. Okay. Now, this is just the basics, right? So to keep the filling in, what we do, this little pointer here, this has helped a lot of people out, is they will flip up the top, flip up the bottom, and then flip down the top. All right, a flip flop.
Okay.
Flip.
Flip
Flip
and a flop.
all right.
Or a flip flop, as the Price is Right.
Oh, I
game
missed
used to
the
go.
prices right.
A flip
Mhm.
and a flop. You have a big commish bread fan.
Oh, I do?
Yes.
Yay!
And also a question about if Nutella you use straight out of the jar.
Oh,
and treat
yeah.
it.
No, to tell you just, if you do want, I will tell you this.
We're going to the face.
If you do, so Nutella is not like peanut butter. Peanut butter, you cannot, people argue with me about this all the time, but I'm very passionate about this. Peanut butter does not work the way you think it's going to work in your head when you put it in. And you can certainly put a layer of peanut butter in your challah or your babka dough, and it will be fine. It'll taste good, but it's not like when you bite into like a peanut butter sandwich and like the peanut butter is like all delicious out there. It's going to not be like that. So I never want to I always want to level set expectations. Now, so because the oils from the peanut butter get sucked into the dough, so the solids are there, but the oils are there, and it sort of changes the consistency. So you can treat peanut butter and you can freeze it. You can add a little butter or margarine and a little powdered sugar, freeze it, and then you'll have a nice thick layer of peanut butter in your anything that you're making. But for Nutella, it's not so bad. Nutella I do use straight out of the jar, but if you ever wanted to just freeze it in little clumps before stuffing, then you would have more of a I don't know, that's a stuff. Oh,
Perfect.
and that is your talking about Nutella and peanut butter. Those are things that I'm also very passionate about. All right, so now
my app went to sleep while we're somebody already answered for you.
Okay, great. So this is a flipped and a flop, and now Danny's going to show you. He's actually perfected the rolling technique. That he's done it so well. So I have Danny here because I find that when you do a class, sometimes you do things on like autopilot, like, autopilot, because you're just so used to it. So when you have someone else help you, they catch things that you might not necessarily notice because you do it so frequently. So Danny is rolling this up from the long side, and tell them what you do to help make sure that the twirls stay nice.
Just do a little tug with each roll. So I like tug and then roll. I tug and then roll. And that just stretches it out as you go. And it gives you an extra few rolls, which is what you really want, because
You want a thick filling, but visually the twirl is nice.
The more rolls you get,
Mhm.
the more swirls you'll see when you cut through it.
Exactly.
So a little bit of a tug and then a roll. We'll tug and roll.
It's a nice tight roll. Excellent.
And you're right, it also makes it nice and tight so it holds together better.
Mhm.
Especially for like when you're going to be braiding it in a challah,
Yeah,
you want that tight roll.
exactly. All right, so now when you get all the way to the end, this is where your perimeter is super helpful, because you want to seal this up. Sometimes I say you don't have to worry so much, but really in a babka, you want to keep all that filling in. Okay.
So if there isn't a perimeter, then you can have trouble sealing it,
Which
or
gets a
your
little
filling
stressful.
will leak out. But I always, my hot tip that I like to
This is
offer,
the
most
Danny
of them
hot
are the Mandy hot
No,
tips,
sorry, we'll give you
is
this.
what I call the dough graft. So if you didn't leave a perimeter and your filling is oozing out and you can't seal it, just pull from a little bit past the edge, like a fresh bit of dough over, and that should, oh wait, I'm off the camera. Here, like from over here and then over the top. And that way you can kind of graft from the side over to the top.
Exactly, because you have to find a fresh space, which is why we leave this area. But just in case, things happen all the time, especially when you're experimenting with fun, different fillings also, which I want you to do. So just know that could happen.
And then I like to roll it seam down, just to make sure it seals up nice.
Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing from the long side.
Do, 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 do.
I like all of your singing. Oops, your Kathy's in there. There you go. Everyone got a good view of your Kathy.
Rolling, rolling, rolling.
Get the
Keep
dough.
that babka rolling.
That's right.
Lord, my strength is swollen.
Babka,
Babka.
that's Danny's favorite song. Sometimes he'll just start singing it. I'm not even lying. Like, he really just likes it. We want to have, and by we, I mean mostly Danny, wants to have a whole soundtrack of just our class. And not like songs.
Pinchy,
Just,
pinch, pinch,
yeah,
pinch,
here's another
pinch,
one.
pinch.
Of all those things that we sing, and by we, I mean mostly Danny. But this is the pinchy, pinch, pinching. Again, see, he's sealing all the way down. All right. Excellent. Fantastic. So make sure it's sealed. Make sure you've got your 2 strands here. Thankfully, it's just 2, and twisting is definitely a little bit step simpler than braiding. So I'm going to give you guys 1 more minute to continue your rolling, and pinchy, pinch, pinching. Any questions while we wait? Nope. Okie dokie, smoky pokey. So now we're going to begin twisting. The twisting I do from the middle, which is actually how I braid my challahs. So when you're twisting, it's just one side over the other, all the way down. Okay, so we're going to start with the middle of the braid, and we'll take the left strand and go, don't double
I
touch.
kind of want to do my exercise.
No.
Okay.
No. Danny wants to also make a Pilates exercise video where you're kneading and you're braiding.
Kneading is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
It's really
They missed that
exhausting.
part of last
Mm.
time. Okay, so left over right,
Yep.
and then all the way down. It's just a basic twist. Okay, and then when you get to the end, you pinch the 2 ends together as tight as you can. Another reason why you left that space between the filling and the dough is right here, because you need that to be able to pinch the dough without your filling popping out. And then on the other side there, all the way to the top. Fabulous. Now, people always ask me what you do with if you need to grease your pan. Yes, you always need to grease it, or Pam spray or something like that, to make sure that it's not going to get stuck on the bottom. So I will spray it. I don't know if you have baking pan there, but any of these baking sprays with flour, I think, are excellent. Like, really, truly excellent. Okay, here we go. Squeeze it in to fit. If it's a little too long, just push it in. And as it rises and as it bakes, it will fill the pan. But just right now, you have to give it a little growing room. Beautiful. Now, I will talk about rising after we finish the second one. Okay, so that was great, you guys. Now, here we go.
Okay.
We're going to work on, here's the second half of the dough. I'll give you 1 minute. This one is in many ways, this flour is in many ways actually a little easier because you don't even have to worry about making it 2 halves. You don't, it's one big piece. It depends what your stress thing is.
Flour with a W.
Flour, yes, flour, not flat like King Arthur. This is
It's like
flour.
flour shape.
Exactly.
I see.
Mhm.
I was confused.
So the reason we have the flour shape is, it's okay. So, so as I said, the twist that I just showed you was just how I always thought babkas were. I didn't think they were any other way. But then Smitten Kitchen, I don't know if any of you follow her. She's brilliant and she's great. I'm sure babkas existed this way beforehand, but when Smitten Kitchen made a post of her babka recipe, she showed how she cut her strand all the way down the center. She would roll it, then cut it, and then twist it like that. Yes. So, and then after that, people wanted all of their challahs to be, their babkas to be just like Smitten Kitchens, which is fine. But we all know my opinion on the fillings. They have to be thick. And when you do it like that, it's a little bit, it's beautiful. So, but in my attempts to make it beautiful, but also a little bit more fun, that's how we come up with the flour recipe, but the flour shape, Flower.
Thank you.
I wish I could say it a different way for you. It's like how I say things the same way that most
Flour versus flour. No.
No, we'll have to work on that later. But this, you'll see here, if you wanted to not make it as a flower shape, if you wanted to make it a traditional shape, but a twist out of one split strand, which I'll show you, you would just roll this dough a little bit shorter, okay, and a little bit wider, okay, and you'll see why in a moment. All right, so here we go. We're gonna get our rolling action now.
Yeah.
This time, I know Danny loves to roll the strands too long. He did that on the first babka just a little bit.
I did. That's why I was having trouble putting the pan. So I got a little excited about the rolling.
He just
rolled
loves
it too
it.
long. I could just roll all
He
day.
just loves it.
Mandy indulged me once and did a single strand, 3 braid challah.
Yeah.
And we had to roll that out like 3 feet long.
Yeah,
It was
it was
very
3.5
exciting.
feet. It was great.
I was very happy to be rolling that out. So this one can be a little bit longer.
Yes. This one can be a little bit longer. Use your butterfly stretch to take it all the way. You want it to be around 24 inches, 24 to 36.
I love it.
But 24 is probably good because you want to also make sure it's wide enough. If you roll it too long, you're not going to have enough dough left to go wide. All right, so for the flower shape, 24 inches. There we go. Now, if you want, you can just go ahead and take your rolling pin. This is it. There's nothing else here that we have to worry about. Okay, there's no cutting. Now we're going to make this as wide as we can. If you can get this to be even 6 inches wide, it would be great. But the wider you can get this, the happier you're going to be. All right, so sometimes even like tuck it in a little bit. You need around 24 inches, but anything extra from that you don't really need. So the more important is to have the width. All right, so 24 by at least 6. If you can get 24 by 8, it's better. 24 by 10, you're really a rock star. Beautiful. Oh, Dan, you're really putting a lot of love into the rolling today. The Pilates are paying off.
You know how I feel about babka dough.
I know.
I love the babka dough because it's just so friendly and pliable and does what you want it to do and it stays where you want it to
Like
stay.
a good Jewish wife, right?
Yeah.
Shut up, Danny. Okay, let's go. Okay, I just had to do it.
Had to.
You get that. That was your little. All right, so here you go. You have one long piece. It does not have to be perfectly shaped at all. This is like the leaning tower of rectangle. Now, same thing. We'll do the chocolate filling for this one. Got it? We're going to do the same thing, making sure you leave an edge all the way around.
And again, just half the filling.
Half the filling.
I
Because
think we're definitely going to need. You
Oh,
know what? I'm
this
going
is
to
it?
chunks.
some people add a little water. Or you
No, we'll just put water on our fingers
Okay. Sometimes
as
it's
you
good
taught me.
and it gets thicker. If it's fat and it got thicker, you can do what we're doing, which is now Danny's just adding it to the, whoops. Now, fun things, this is a chocolate base, but again, there's a bunch of things you can add to this. You can add peppermint extract or peppermint crushed candies to a mint chocolate filling. You can add also like walnuts. You can add sprinkles. You can add, what other things can you add? You can add crushed graham crackers. You can add Nilla wafers. what are other things? I don't even know. There's so many things you can add. If you like, someone I know loves apples and chocolate, so you can do chopped cinnamon coated apples.
Cinnamon. To
Cinnamon.
spice things up.
Yeah, you can do a cinnamon, and then or
Like do a hot spicy
Mexican chocolate is
with,
really good. The red
cayenne
pepper.
pepper.
Yeah, that's great. Bunch of different things. Now, just keep in mind if you wanted to add marshmallows to this filling, which a lot of people want to, that the baby marshmallows do melt. They're also harder to deal with when you're slicing it the long way. So you might want to go ahead and stick your marshmallows on top, like add a little extra egg wash and stick them on top during the last 10 minutes or so of baking. And then they'll be not inside the strand, but they'll be nice toasted marshmallows on top, which is really fun. Because marshmallows are great, but they sort of sometimes are a challenge when you're stuffing them in. All right. Oh, that's so cool. So this is like, look at this thick layer of chocolate. I know it's a little thick. It's a little hard to spread, but it's worth the extra pushing because it's going to be such a little bit more over here because it's going to be that you're going to get that filling in every bite, which to me, again, I'm sorry, I said weird that I talk so much about it. Sometimes a little self-conscious, but it's worth it to get that yummy filling in every bite. Oh, this is great.
Okay.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm going to wash my hands for a sec.
Do we do the flip flop on this one?
No.
No. So we don't do the flip flop on the end, but we just do the regular long ways roll up.
Yes, nice and tight.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so remember, if you ever wanted to make this a standard loaf babka, you would not have it be this long. You would have it be a little bit shorter and a little bit wider. You're so silly.
Well, you might as well just
I can't.
step back.
No,
because
I
I'm going to
can't.
keep moving left and right.
I see how it's
They
going.
can't see this. We're sort of getting in each other's way here as I'm moving up and down.
Excellent. Beautiful.
Okay.
Right, the same thing. You're going to pinchy, pinch, pinch, seal that all the way. It's just one long strand. It's so cool.
Really exciting.
I know, I love
It's
this
a
one.
very long caterpillar.
It is. It's definitely verging on snake territory. We'll just pretend that it ate its Wheaties. All right, so just take a minute, make sure that your strand is nice and sealed. Okay, then he likes to put this heel down.
That way it stays nice and tight.
All right. You want to make sure that there's not one, like the goal is for this to be the same width all the way across. And now, just when you think you can't have any more fun, no, what's going on? Oh, if the dough is ripping, then you're probably rolling it a little too thin. So go ahead and stop and bind it together, like pinch it together and go from there. And you might want to just, this might be too thin. You should not have it be so thin that it's tearing. Okay, so when we get to this part, this is when we get, now I don't want to upset anyone, but this is, I don't know how, I say you need your most murdery knife, which means don't prepare for murder. No, this means, it just means a super sharp knife. The sharper your knife
There's
is.
a theme that the yeast
No,
and then the
but
knife.
I don't like to kill the yeast.
Yes. Okay.
I just call this my murdery knife.
Okay.
Now going forward, if you have, we're going to do this, and if you ever have a problem doing this for some reason, it's a little challenging, you could always put this on a cookie sheet and stick it in the freezer for like 15 minutes, and that will help it be a little easier to cut, but you should be okay. So take your murdery knife or your extra sharp knife or whatever you want to call it, and go down the center, just like that. Oh, happy. All the way down. Cutting through sometime, and I actually do recommend going through twice because there's always a little spot that's you just missed. I mean, it's just gonna just to double check. Excellent. Amy, you're quite capable with the murder knife.
Yes.
And then
The reveal.
yes. Oh, you did great. You're gonna flip the cut side up. Okay.
Ta-da.
All right.
And this is why we have nice thick filling
So
and as many rolls as possible.
exactly. The nice thick filling, if we did not have the crazy thick filling, things would be a start to be either you have a very thin, flavorless filling that wouldn't be as delicious, or things would start to be oozing out all over the place and be a hot mess. So this is the compromise. So what we, so now pretend that this is just one long regular babka and you're just gonna just twist it. One part over the other, starting in the middle is what I prefer to do, especially in this nice long roll. The challenge is when you're twisting one piece over the other, you want to go ahead and just make sure that you keep that cut part on top if you can. All right, that cut part is the pretty part. So then I want to see
A little bit of a horizontal twist as opposed to a rolling twist.
I don't know when you mean exactly when you say that.
Well, I just mean I'm bringing it sideways as opposed to just a.
Oh, yes, okay. So double Dutch, you're just more of like a windshield wiper.
Exactly. Okay.
I don't know. I'm just following your lead, Silverman. Okay, beautiful, super cool. Come on, let's see how cool this is. All right, amazing. All the way now. If you again, like if you hadn't rolled it out that long, if you just rolled it out a standard size, then you would just it would be this much, and then you'd have your babka there. But because we made ours extra long and thin, all right, I'll give you guys 1 minute to catch up and mustard. Beautiful.
Oh, that's
Um,
your dad.
I know, I can't help it. Turning into my mom, but I get a little bit of my dad every once in a while. Go ahead and take either end, whatever side you want, and roll it up.
This is also a horizontal roll.
Yes,
Because it's staying flat with the surface.
I understand.
We're just going to roll it up.
All the way. Look, it's going. It's going. It's almost done.
And at the end, what do we do?
The pinchy pinch and tuck it under so you can't see the tail. Look at that. Ta-da! Awesome, right? Danny, that's really quite awesome.
Thank you. I'm
And-
actually quite proud of that one.
That's
A
gorgeous.
little bit better than the last one.
Everyone's
Every
doing
time.
that better. All right, now let's go ahead and then we'll take a pause before we talk about egg wash. If you were going to bake your challah your babka now, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350. It's going to bake at 350 for around 35 minutes or so, 30 to 35 minutes. Okay. But if you remember, if you accidentally use that rapid rise or quick rise yeast, then you can just go ahead and bake it now. Now we'll talk a little bit about egg wash and then we'll be done. So the egg wash for babka, some people don't egg wash their babkas, they just go straight to cream topping, but I think it makes it shinier and pretty. So I just use a whole egg for that. I'm not even that particular. But keep in mind that the yolk is what gives it color. So some people just use the egg yolk. So if you want to just use the egg yolk, you have to mix it with water first. Otherwise, it's going to get darker too quickly. Doing a nice job. That is some beautiful whisking action. I'm good. Actually, I'll get this. You can pop it on here.
Oh, there.
All right, we'll just show the egg wash on this. All right,
Parchment lined cookie sheet.
parchment lined cookie sheet, or if you have a round cake pan, it would also work. That it will also work in probably a large pie pan. Okay. For vegans, melted margarine oil. A lot of people use milk alternative with maple syrup. I hesitate to do that for challah because the maple syrup does add a little taste in addition to adding the brown color, which normally eggs or margarine or oil does not add. But for the babka, it's a sweet, so a little maple might not be bad at all. Yes, a lot of that's the date syrup. People also like, I hate this word,
Aquafaba.
they like that a lot for egg wash. That is the chickpea liquid.
I've yet to try it, but I love the word.
I don't know, maybe this will be.
Maybe this will be the one.
No,
No.
probably not. Still scared of it.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I'll just show you a quick tip about your egg wash.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
dude, gorgeous.
Thank
So
you.
whenever you're egg washing, it's always important to remember to egg
This is
wash.
a really big egg
I know, this is
It's like, wow.
it's the end of the day and I've been baking all day. This is the only one that's left that's fine. Sorry. So you want to go from the out to the in, because if you egg wash all over willy-nilly, what's going to happen is you're going to have egg that pools in these cute little crevices and you won't see all your hard work. So always helps to egg wash from the outside in. All right, and then you can, toppings work on this too. You can totally do crumbled up cookies. You can do rainbow sprinkles. Like I said, you can do a little sea salt. for a salted chocolate or salted
Oh,
cookie
yeah,
dough.
sounds
You can
great.
do that if you want. Babka starts with wheat, so
Yes.
maybe we could do one of these.
For those who don't follow you on Instagram,
Yes.
we do Shabbos meals by spin the wheel.
And we
And
pick
get
the letter. That's
a
what we've been
letter.
doing the last few weeks. And it's been very
And
fun. Last,
everything on the menu has to start with that letter.
last week was I, so that was really challenging. But this week is B, so it's much easier.
Yes, we're gonna have
Brisket egg rolls,
burgers and
burger. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff.
babka.
And now we got Babka. Look, one thing's
Perfect.
done. Thanks, Danny.
High five.
Okay, all right. So there you go. 35 minutes at 3:50. What questions can I answer for you?
You guys, do you have any questions? Anybody? I don't see too many questions. I think you guys did a great job answering a lot of them. I just want to make sure people understand the yeast. It should say instant. I mean, it should, like, what I'm saying is what we get in Canada. I just pulled it out. Hang on.
This one is the most popular yeast I see from everywhere.
This is the one that I wanted to show you. Can you see that? That's the one that's easily accessible.
Is that
It
quick
says-
rise?
It says quick rise instant yeast.
Okay,
Is
so
that,
that
is that the liar?
it's no active dry is the liar. Quick rise is the one that's not quite right because it's not designed for longer term usage. So if you use that quick rise, it's fine. Just don't do the second rise.
Got it. Okay. Want to
I'm
make
gonna put it right in the oven right now.
Yeah,
That's what you use.
Right. So right now, if you use instant yeast or active dry yeast, this would stay on your counter covered in rise. I just put a towel on top for 20 to 30 minutes, right? 20 to 30 minutes, it's going to rise more, and then we'll bake it at 350. If you use that quick rise yeast, just put it in the oven. Yeah, like you can rest for like 5 minutes and then put it in.
Otherwise, Mandy just brought out this brand that we get here, and then this is, or bread machine yeast.
Yes,
if you
bread
find it.
machine yeast also. This yeast is all over the place.
If
Yes,
you
What
have
is that? What is
Yeah.
that?
Bunch of questions coming in about
make your filling thick enough and it's all over the place, will the dough, like, will it still rise even though there's chocolate like all over the place?
Yeah, especially is it in your chocolate one? Are you using your flour or your loaf?
Chocolate one, no, you can't see it. It's just everywhere.
That's fine. It happens. If you are able to bake it instead of on a cookie sheet and like if it's the round one in a round cake pan or a large pie pan, those edges will help protect the filling from falling out. That's why I say like loaf pans are great when your filling gets a little crazy because it acts like space and everything just squishes in together. All right, Danny, questions?
Yes, there's a whole bunch of questions coming in. There's a couple about, let's see. So can you freeze it now? If you do freeze it, what's the defrost time? So let's do the frozen questions first.
Okay. I don't recommend freezing it because babka is a little bit more forgiving than challah. The bigger issue when you freeze a babka or a challah is that you would freeze it right now if you're going to do it. But the issue is when you get to defrost it. So you put it on your counter to defrost or in your fridge, it's going to keep on rising a little bit. And the problem then when you have if you leave it on your counter, okay, we're going to let it defrost and then we're going to bake it, is that the outside defrosts quicker than the inside. So you either will let it sit on your counter for an extra long time just to be sure it's completely defrosted, and then you sometimes end up with an overrise situation. Or you're like, oh, it's good enough, I'm going to put it in, but it's still frozen in the middle, and then you end up when you bake it as it's raw in the middle. So that's why I try to avoid it. I mean, if you totally can, like I said, babka, it's a little thinner than all the braids of challah, so it's a little bit more forgiving. But in general, I try to avoid it. But if not, then yeah, do just that. Cover it, stick it in the freezer right now, and then you can defrost it in the fridge overnight, and take it out and bake it.
And there was a quick question about rise time relative to oven preheat time. So is it about the same, or what's the rise time? Let's put it that way.
The rise time, the second rise time is 20 to 30 minutes. So everyone's oven preheats at different amounts of time. So you can turn on your oven now. Worst case, it's on for a few extra minutes while your rise finishes up. Or it takes a really long time to rise and you can have a little extra preheat. You got a little extra time to rise. It'll be all right.
And then somebody asked to see a finished version. So I happen to have one right here.
That never happened.
Yes, it doesn't, but this was from
I don't know.
prior to class, I believe.
And that was, yeah, maybe it was a few days ago.
Yeah.
We have lots of just Hollas and
There's a
babkas
lot of Holla
just
babka
roaming around.
But I happen to have that one nearby. And then somebody asked, when did you start and what is your story?
Oh, picture it. I didn't make any challah or babka forever, like I said, because I was so scared of it. But I live in close to Boston, and my mom and my whole family lives in St. Louis, Missouri. So we're very close, but we just talk on the phone all the time. So my mom for Rosh Hashanah went to somebody's house for the Shabbos lunch or something like that, and she cut the challah and she opened, and there's like a layer of honey inside. Oh my gosh, my mom was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. How did you? It was so cool. The woman said, I'm never going to tell you. Now I've come to learn that this is how some people are. They don't want to share the recipes, which is fine. You don't have to share your recipe. The woman's like, I'm not telling you, don't worry. I'm not telling my children. Nobody knows. This is my special secret. My mom called me up because we're very sharing. We talk and share. We just give everything. Like, I don't understand. It was so cool. How do you think she did it? Like, she was like, do you think I talk a lot and talk fast? My mom, one day, I could only hope to talk as much and as fast as her. I'm getting there. But so she went on. I was like, Mommy, don't worry. I will figure out how to make this honey stuffed challah. Keeping in mind, I never made anything with yeast at all because I was scared of the yeast. So I started making not only did I start trying to make challah at all, I started by trying to make challah stuffed with honey, which is just wrong because honey is probably one of the most challenging things you can stuff your challah with. It's impossible. So I kept making all these dough recipes and either messing up with the filling or the dough. I made so many mistakes and I had failed so many times that I got so upset that I wanted to just start thinking about other things that I could put in the challah that might work. So I put in like salami and caramelized onions and like a whole bag of chocolate chips. And crazy things that like my friends like, and all those things worked fine. Everyone loved it. And it was great. And I'd make them for people's birthdays. And anyways, it got more and more like they're like, maybe you should have a business. And then it took me another year, 6 months to convince me to do that. And then I finally did it. I did it in October of 2013 was the first time I did it. I did 30 challahs for 1 month. And I was like, okay, that was exhausting. That was enough for me. But then it turned out that the next month was the Thanksgiving and Hanukkah combined celebration. Remember that? And it was like never going to happen again. So we have to be all super excited about it. I thought, oh, it'd be so nice if my 1 week I do it for Thanksgiving and I make it like a challah special for Thanksgiving. And I did a pumpkin dough filling with a pull apart turkey rolls. I made a cute little turkey with a sprinkled beak and chocolate chip pie. Anyways, I put it on my Facebook, which only had 100 followers, not even at the time. But people saw it from all over. They shared and it was all exciting. And people drove from really far away, like hours to get one. And that gave my business a little boost. And then 6 months later, after I started doing more flavors and becoming more and more comfortable and even learning more, even from October to whenever the following, August was or whenever it was that I went on Instagram. I had my friend's daughter put me on there. So then I went on Instagram, and Instagram, it reaches a whole other audience. So people that I would never, my Facebook was targeted to people like in the East Coast or whatever. Instagram was just like, and I went on there and people just started asking me questions because I said that I make a challah. And I realized that my Instagram was not a good place for my business, but I could help all these people having all these problems and questions and fears with their challah and babka making experience. And I had made all of those mistakes already. So I was really good. I could totally help them. I was like, don't be so sad. I know how to fix it. Oh, don't worry about that. Use Insidies. And that is when I decided that it'd be much better, instead of selling the challahs, to help people make their challahs themselves. And I answer all the questions all the live long day from all people. And I share all of my recipes. Sorry, lady, with the honey challah. I know how to do that, but I don't do a class on the honey challah.
We keep her secret.
We do keep her secret.
So the moral of the story is, if you have any questions, feel free to message her at Mandylicious Holla on Instagram.
Correct, because I will answer them. And you can people send me pictures of the dough, and we work it out step by step, all over the world. It's very exciting.
Great.
Very nice.
Any other questions? Did I blather out too long?
No, I think we're.
Very nice, you guys. Are we done with questions here? Because I think it's getting late on your end. You must be tired. I know I'm not. I think I snitched a little of the filling, and it's really good.
Good.
I'm going to be up for a while. I don't know what you guys are still baking off and making a few of them. Thank you. I think we all learned, definitely, from the highest level bakers to the newbies. And I really want to thank you. I want to thank everyone for participating. And I think if Camille or anyone else has anything to say, I'd just like to thank everyone from our community. A good kosher Pesach. Enjoy the calories, guys, before we just get stuck on eating matzah. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you guys do bake them, please tag me on Instagram at Mandy Salad. I'll be so happy to post them up to show to everybody, because I do like to show off everyone's hard work, because I know how hard you work. And I'm very proud of you, and I'm very impressed.
I think there was one last question that came in the chat that Bonnie asked if you could bake them at the same time.
Yes, if they both fit in the oven, they both are the same bake time of around 30 to 35 minutes. But check on them after 30 minutes, because they might, be done sooner.
Do you recommend side by side or two?
Side by side. I don't like using the lower rack in general.
And would you use convection or just regular?
It doesn't really make, I use both for this. Just make sure that you understand your oven, because every oven has different rules for convection. Some ovens automatically make the change because you have to do a 25-degree less cook, less baking degrees for convection. So I do 350, so that's 325. Some ovens automatically make that adjustment, and sometimes you have to put it in for a lower temperature.
Perfect. And we have Stacy asks, how do you avoid cracks in challah dough?
Okay, I have to see it to know exactly what you're talking about, but a lot of challah dough recipes, if you're talking about how the dough rises and sort of separates at the top, which is, it's so, I think, unless it's dry, if your dough is dry and it's cracking, you might want to try. I have a whole highlight on my Instagram of dough consistency. It's actually so important and so helpful, because that's what messes people's challah up about 100% of the time. Is not 100, 90% is they have to get that consistency right. So I do have a video of that on my Instagram if you want to check that out. But if you're talking about when you make a challah and the strands sort of come, bake apart and spread, I think if you Google it, there's so many reasons that it's even that no one agrees, right? They say, oh, that happens because you're braiding it too tight. Oh, it happens because you're braiding it too loose. Oh, you have to bake it on a higher temperature. Oh, you have to low. Literally 1,000 contradicting reasons. Like if you Google right now, Google it. I'm telling you, it's the truth. It's because they don't know. So after much thought and much research, I think that the reason that some doughs tend to do that versus others are the richer, sweeter doughs that act more like, not like cake, but they're like definitely more sweet and more rich. As they bake, they're sort of more out of control. Not out of control, but they're not going to just stay there. Like when you just have flour, water, and yeast, a more simple recipe that has less fat, less sugar, those strands, you can do whatever you want, and they're going to look like the ones that you get at a bakery, because they're not moving at all. They're just basic ingredients. When you start treating things like a cake and giving all this richness, like a brioche almost, and to the dough, they're all going to have that effect when you braided them, but they're sort of breaking and spreading apart. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. I think when my challahs do that, I just think they look extra beautiful. So I didn't, until I went to Instagram, I actually had no idea that people thought there was anything wrong with it. I think it looks great. So if you wanted to try a recipe with less egg yolks or less oil or less sugar and salt, cut those sorts of things, you will probably have more luck with your challah not moving, but you will sacrifice taste. So it's one of those things in general.
Okay. I think we're done, yeah? Everyone? Okay. Last thank you. Great, guys. Thanks everyone for participating, and thank you too very, very much.
Thank you guys. Have a great night. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.